When the master's chair was vacated by Andrew Curran in 1913, the members of LOL 2297 elected to fill the position with a man who was not only a respected and valued member of the community, but who, through his physical prowess and stature of character, embodied the qualities of a natural leader. His name was Obadiah Henry Switzer, but to most he was simply known as Obie. He was a second-generation farmer to Osgood Township. His father, Christopher, and uncle, Albert, had emigrated from Bell's Corners in the 1860s, and between them settled 200 acres of densely forested bush between the 9th and 10th concessions on the banks of the Castor River. The Switzers' strong work ethic and perseverance was as much an asset as it was a necessity in carving an existence out of the wilderness. By the time of Obadiah's birth in 1883, the Switzer brothers had both built their own houses and barns, and despite constant struggles, were unwavering in their determination for success. Such traits were inherited by their sons, and would become instrumental in helping build and maintain the Orange Lodge of Edwards in its first generation of existence. In selecting Obie Switzer as the figurehead of the lodge, the brethren of LOL 2297 had chosen a man who projected a mayoral-type presence while maintaining a balance between propriety and conviviality. "My father was a big man," Obadiah's youngest son Roy remembered. "Stout, but very solid and strong. There was something about his demeanor which encouraged you to do his bidding. He was well liked in the community, especially by the young people who used to have a lot of fun with him. When grain threshing time arrived, and we exchanged help with our neighbors, some of the young men used to like to wrestle with him, but found him difficult to handle even 2-on-1. Even the very young used to call him Obie, instead of Mr. Switzer." With Obie Switzer at the helm, a realignment of officers took place, and LOL 2297 quickly became less of a figurative brotherhood and more of a literal fraternity. On any given night, a sitting lodge room could be largely composed of an intricate web of fathers, sons, brothers, cousins, even in-laws. During the formative years of the lodge, Worshipful Master O.H. Switzer was joined by 2 of his brothers, Albert and Thomas, as well as 2 of his cousins, Sandy and Sidney Thomas Waddell. Deputy Master John Thomas Mitchell, who had donated the land upon which the Knox Baptist Church was erected, banded with his brother-in-law, Stuart Bradley, who in turn recruited 3 of his sons, Carson, Ernest, and Osgood. Treasurer Thomas Quinn, who was known for his well-kept but oddly treeless property, had at his side 2 brothers-in-law, John Edgar and William George McCooey, and the McCooey brothers were aligned with a second brother-in-law, Mr. John Alexander Harrison, who brought with him a strong Orange pedigree. In short, the interests of the Edwards Orange Lodge were built around the family, a tradition that would be carried on by future generations. As the Orange family of Edwards grew, it soon became necessary for the brethren to establish a permanent home in which they could conduct their business. During its first 2 years of operation, LOL 2297 met in the home of Mr. John Graham, but by 1913 there were nearly 30 members in the lodge, and the confines of the Graham family parlor were quickly proving insufficient. To help fund the building of their own meeting hall, the Orangemen of Edwards hosted their first 12th of July celebration and extended invitations to other lodges within and around the district, such as Metcalfe, North Russell, Marvelville, Vernon, Greeley, and Hawthorne. While 10,000 Orangemen marched in Cornwall to commemorate King William III's victory over James II at the Battle of the Boyne, the family and friends of LOL 2297 gathered in Obie Switzer's Grove for a more communal affair. Guests were served beef and bread, and to ensure there was no shortage of dessert, the lodge ordered 35 gallons of ice cream, approximately 80 cartons by today's standards. Despite the fact that the Saturday event was accompanied by rain, it was an undoubted success. LOL 2297 raised $60 through their endeavors, nearly enough to secure the plot of land on which their new hall would be constructed. In November of 1913, it was decided by committee that the new hall would be built close to the Edwards train station. A small lot measuring 50 feet in width and 150 feet in length was purchased from Richard Augustus Bickerton, the village's postmaster and grocer. Plans to begin construction were set for the following year. As 1913 drew to a close, the future of LOL 2297 looked brighter than ever. The next spring, the job of constructing the hall was given to local carpenter William Waddell Switzer, Worshipful Master Obadiah Switzer's oldest brother. For the sum of $125, William Switzer was instructed to build a hall 20 feet wide, 36 feet long, with walls 12 feet in height. To cover the expense, lodge members were each taxed $6. On June 11, 1914, the grading of the grounds commenced, and the building of the Edwards Orange Hall was underway. But the building of the lodge was not the only matter of interest for the brethren. As they planned and prepared their new home, they also expressed concern for matters beyond the boundaries of Edwards. Of national importance, the members made financial contributions to fight the Ne Temere Decree, a proclamation from the Catholic Church that refused to legitimize the marriage of any person of Catholic faith who was not joined in union by a Catholic priest. By 1914, the decree had caught the attention of all Orangemen, when 2 Montreal area Catholics had their marriage voided after it was discovered they had been married by a Methodist minister. This act violated canon law, which stated that no pastor could validly perform a marriage outside the limits of his or her own parish. Of international matters, the recent assassination of Austrian Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the act that would ultimately lead to the outbreak of World War I, was not nearly as important to Canadian Orangemen as was Northern Ireland's fight against Home Rule, a struggle that the Edwards Orange would support with homage to the old land.
And the orange flag of liberty is floating from the mast.
While backing opposition to both the Ne Temere Decree and Home Rule, construction of the Edwards Orange Hall continued, and on Wednesday, July 8th, less than a month after the project had begun, the lodge was ready for opening. The inaugural meeting was enthusiastically attended, and those present witnessed the initiation of 2 new members, Arden Fair and Ford McEwen, both of whom were reminded of the Saviour's words in the Gospel of Matthew. Whosoever heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man, which built his house upon a rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell not, for it was founded on a rock. The house that Arden and Ford were now a part of was built upon that same rock, and therefore the glory of God, the welfare of man, the honor of their sovereign, and the good of their country would be the motives for all of their actions.